What about our Quasar podcast, The Quantum Zone?
What about our Quasar podcast?
Wendell Vaughn, the first Earthman ever appointed protector of the universe. Bonded to the energy-transforming quantum bands that are both weapons and symbols of his station, he fights an ongoing battle to defend all life in the universe from cosmic evil as Quasar. Man, who's that young man doing that intro? Welcome back to another episode of, I almost said Quantum Zone, Capes and Lunatics. I am Phil, and of course, anytime you hear this music, joining me is Will.
Hey.
Justin. Woohoo! Meow. And of course, Jason Olsen is back because we're going to talk his second book on Mark Gruenwald. This time, Mark Gruenwald's Quasar, of course. Yes. With
the only one without a copy at the moment.
with the quantum band.
Yes, with the quantum bands on
Yes,
it.
no
Not,
nega bands.
the
Quantum
nega
bands.
bands.
I was always on the fence on that cover, frankly. The clenched fist didn't really seem very Wendell Vaughn. But then once we got those bands fixed, I was like, this is the right cover. I'm feeling good about it now.
All right. So, yes. So, this time, like I said, we're talking the book. And for those of you who don't know that music or anything, Will and I, with a gentleman named Matt Coney, used to do a weekly podcast called The Quantum Zone, all about Quasar. If you want to find it, it's on the Capes and Lunatics YouTube channel. The easiest way to find it, there's a whole playlist, over 150 episodes. So, and most of those were live reads of an issue. So,
There were a lot of those. And I still blame Tom DeFalco for one of the weirdest lines I've ever had to say.
oh yeah, because Star Blast, yeah.
They aren't even attempting to enter our orifices.
That's the one.
A Fantastic Four issue, kids.
That's from
Pure
Fantastic
gold,
Four
right
Star Blast crossover. Yeah, that's
Yes.
gold right there.
An absolutely relevant crossover issue to what was going on in Star Blast and Quasar.
See,
Exactly.
see,
Which is why I can't remember it at all.
Fair.
see, but
I know
me,
Namor,
But-
Fantastic Four something.
But
That's what I remember of that part of the crossover.
but meanwhile, Will had no problem, doing a quote from The Stranger.
The
I
Stranger.
am God.
He didn't mind doing that. Or the
We
content.
talk about that.
Hmm.
He talks about that in the book because that's how the
Oh,
Stranger
yeah.
gets the Star Brand from Kayla. So
Yeah.
And we get one. I think there's one line, one moment where Caleb kind of indicates a Christianity in her faith, and it's not much. It's a passing thing, but it's so cool to get that callback where that's what works for her. I think in the book I talk about his God complex, but I think it's almost beyond that when it comes to the Stranger. I think we're well beyond just the complex with this guy, but yeah, he actually just goes ahead and poses as God convincingly. And I think I also say in the book that he has sort of a godlike presentation, with the exception of the giant muscles and whatever that outfit is. And the mustache is not usually
the mustache, yeah.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
And it's funny when he goes all energy form and it just has his face. That mustache is just there. It's right
Yeah.
there.
It's large in charge.
He better go wax that mustache as our hero tells him off.
But yeah, I mean, I always, when you bring it up at the beginning of your book, I always kind of remind myself, Mark Gruenwald did not create the character of Wendell Vaughn. Well, I guess he kind of created Wendell Vaughn, but not Quasar. But it's because his first few appearances are not Mark Gruenwald. But I think everything after the kid saying Marvel Man, that's a stupid name. Everything after that, I attribute to Mark Gruenwald.
I love that.
It's such a Gruenwald thing to do, which is take a pre-existing character, figure out a way to kind of make it yours, and then work with that. There's so many great weird characters in the Marvel universe that he had a lot to choose from. He didn't have to just make things from new, and obviously Quasar was not really used to much effectiveness before that. To Marvel Boy, to inexplicably Marvel Man, just in the next issue without any sort of retconning, or just just there it is, with pants, which is nice.
Not shorts anymore. Shorts.
And then we're hey, I'm Quasar now. I'm gonna go work at Project Pegasus, and then that's where Mark steps in, and it gives the whole backstory in abbreviated version in the Project Pegasus storyline in 2-in-1, and then runs with it a few years later. Takes him a while. As he says, this was something he wanted to do, but he didn't get to just do stuff because it seemed fun right away. Eventually, he had to convince the powers that be to do it, and then he realized, he said this in the interview, and then I realized I was a powers that be. So, sure, I'll do it. Since if I'm the one that I have to convince, I'm convinced.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I don't
Well,
think...
and I think you... I'm sorry, go ahead, Phil.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think I knew that. You say it took 8 years or something for the time he started to try to get a Quasar series to the time we actually got it?
Exactly. And it was something that he wanted to do, all these points. And I think one of the conversations I want to have tonight is why it was so important to him. And I think the content of the comic tells us that. But this is something he wanted to do. Quasar just sort of hung around a bit, sort of guest starring and in a bunch of different series. The 2-in-1, the Team Up, Dazzler, things like that, until he finally found his footing. But Mark made sure we didn't fully forget. He appears in those official handbooks a lot more prominently than you would probably think he would, considering not every hero got in there. Not every hero got a multi-page spread in the way that he made sure Quasar had. Even doing the art for Quasar's entries. He didn't do a lot of the art in the handbook, but the ones he did, you kind of knew, okay, these are the ones that really matter to him. Quasar was one of those. It did take a while. He had to build his cachet up, and this was the project that he desperately wanted to make sure he did. That's why it was so much fun writing this book, and it was fun writing the Captain America book too. But this feels like unfiltered Gruenwald. With the Cap book, there were things that he had to make sure he did. He couldn't go completely off the edge, and there are moments in Quasar where we go off the edge, and I love it. I love it so much.
Well, even at the beginning, and you make a note of it in the book, he starts the series weirdly. He starts it in the past, and we get a full issue of the past, and then the next issue, it's a lot of flashback as he's unconscious, flying out to a planet that I'm not going to say because we'll just all laugh. But anyway.
The Iranian people that are no longer with us. If we just say that, I think we're fine. I had 3 origin issues. I mean, it basically starts with 3 issues that each have a different part of his origin. Pre-Project Pegasus, immediate post-Project Pegasus, and then present day after the Avengers, when he fights Supernova. So it takes us 3 issues for him to properly introduce everything that we need to know about the character. And 3 completely independent, almost, introductions that we get, by the 3rd issue, we're getting his introduction as, civilian identity. We meet Kayla, we get into what Vaughn Security Systems is, and then by 4, we're ready to rock. But it takes us a while to get to that point, which I love, because it's such an unorthodox way to do things that it really sets up what this comic is going to be. And he has kind of a pattern in those, especially the first 12 issues, that's pretty consistent of, we're going to check in with Kayla, see what's going on. I'm going to go get a call I'm going to look around to see if I can find any alien threats. And then I'm going to have a moment of self-doubt about whether or not I can do this. And that seems to be the pattern in a lot of those issues, is I'm going to fight somebody. I'm not good enough for this. Then we're done. and so he has that consistency when he's building the character. But I kind of love those first few issues and how uniquely he presents this character.
Well, and honestly, your analysis, I think, of those first 12 issues actually gives me a lot more appreciation for them, because I feel like, and Phil and I have talked about this a lot over the years, is that 13 with the Journeys into Mystery storyline is where he kind of, I feel like, takes the foot off the brake and hits the gas, right?
Yeah.
This is where things really take off for the book, because that runs us, almost right. We get the race, of course, and the unbeing issue, but then that runs us right into Cosmos and Collision. So, looking at how you analyze those issues and bringing in, especially, the mental health aspect, which I'd kind of missed, he just doubts himself, because a sane person would doubt themselves, when given this load. But as I read the book, I'm like, these first 12 issues, which I always thought were really good standard superhero fare, I'm looking at them again, and I'm seeing more there. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for saying that. I spent a lot of time with those 12 issues. It feels only fair to talk about his run on Captain America, because the last time I was on, we talked a lot more about Quasar than I think most Captain America discussions. And so he does something very different, but focused in the first 12 issues. Mark was not somebody who was just thinking of a comic that he's writing as being a quick little thing. He wants to spend the first year establishing something. And in Captain America, he establishes those ideological villains. We're going to introduce Flag Smasher. We're going to introduce Super Patriot. We're going to set up new threats that are outside of the sort of traditional World War II Nazi enemies for him. Here, he doesn't, well, obviously he's not going to do that. But what he's doing here is not necessarily introducing that many brand new villains, but instead bringing in threats that kind of allow us to see this character, because he knows what we're doing here is we're being introduced to a character that we don't really know, not like Captain America. And so it doesn't make sense to bring in brand new villains for this guy. We want to see what he does against Absorbing Man. You want to get threats that make more sense. What is this guy going to do against like really kind of maybe a bit obscure, villains like the Red Ghost or Living Laser, things like that, that will allow us to kind of see his power set. And, what's he going to do against Venom? Take him out.
Like that.
The 3 panels.
Yeah. And even like
what is this guy?
And even like new villains, like the King of Continuity, Mark Gruenwald, he had like, they had a connection, like, like the Anglers looking for the Nth Projector that was from Captain America, but not even his Captain America, J.M. DeMatteis's Captain America.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So even the ones that we have that are new aren't really, or we're pulling out like old Captain Marvel villains and playing with that kind of thing. And so
Nova villains that we hadn't seen since the 70s and that Journey into Mystery. I never forget seeing the Stranger's Ship and that just entourage of characters that we hadn't seen in 20 or 25 years, like Dragonfly and 3D Man and all these people.
Or
Diamond Head.
Or that group you talked about in the book, Jason. It's like the Ethicals who appeared in one issue of Machine Man.
A Machine Man.
One issue of Machine Man.
Digging into obscurity. We're digging in deeply. One person I want to make sure I give credit to, if you hold up the book, you will see there's my name and then there's another name underneath it.
Yes.
And that's David Loafers. And David was absolutely essential, not only in writing the foreword for this book, but of kind of guiding me toward things. And so a lot of the stuff that you mentioned as being things you didn't know, a lot of that was stuff that David was kind enough to share with me in our conversations. And the ethicals were one that he told me, like, you have to write about the ethicals. And I'm like, that's just a weird panel or two. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. He said, go back and find the Machine Man issues. And so I went back, I read Machine Man, and it's like, well, these are weirdos. And Mark calls him back. He brings him back. It fits into that world of all this stuff going on in the laboratory planet. And it fits, and it's so Mark that, you find the letter page in that Machine Man, and people are like, and, he says as the assistant editor, this is what I'm naming them. They're not even named in the issue itself. This is what I'm going to name them, and they'll be back. And how many years it took? 20 years, whatever it is. 15 years, and they're back. And they're not there long, but it's long enough.
I think in the letter pages of 1819, they had the contest where, hey, can you name all of the characters that we saw on the Stranger's Lab World, right?
Yeah.
And people did.
Yes, I remember that too.
And this was pre-internet, kids, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you imagine? There are people digging it. What Machine Man issue was that? Where are my Machine
I've seen these before.
Yes.
Well, and you wouldn't even be able to find out in the issue of Machine Man that they appeared in, because it would have been in a letters page later, right?
Yes, they were named later. I mean, they look the same in that Machine Man issue. Well, I read that Machine Man issue. Don't doubt that. It was such a wonderful thing in a lot of ways that researching this and writing about Quasar allowed me to go back and find so many other things. Because you can't write about Mark's work on Quasar without exploring so many other things. and it was the delight, to go back, read those Spider-Woman issues that he wrote, find these obscurities that he was so fascinated with. There's just nothing that was out there in the Marvel universe that wasn't a potential for an appearance or really building a storyline around, and we're going to get to more of those things when we talk about, the quote Quest Probe and all these other things that he played with, that such obscurities. That was probably one of my favorite chapters to write, was the one about continuity, and the one where I got to reference all of these different things, because it was just amazing. And I love that you bring up, Phil, the pre-internet stuff. Mark's head was the internet for Marvel. Yeah. I mean, he didn't need Google because it was all there, and people responded to him that way. That he just knew this stuff, and so he knew exactly where the ethicals appeared and when he named them later. And it was just impressive that he had such a passionate fan base. It wasn't as big as what other people were going to have, and I've talked to Kat Schuler Gruenwald, and she said that he knew his fans were not maybe as numerous as other people's fans, but they cared and they loved his work so much. And I love being around other people who can and still share that with me. So I love being able to talk to you guys about this, because there aren't a whole lot of us who have this passion for Mark's work. But those of us who do, we know why, because he just dug so deep.
It's like you had you had to be there at a certain time, because a lot of times people go back and they don't get it. It's like, and like at a certain age, like again, like 11-year-old me, I was like, oh my God, this is something.
Yeah, that was the case with me and his work on DP7, because when that came out, I was I think 10 or 11, and it was a little bit just slightly too adult for me. I mean, I liked it, but it went a little bit over my head. But years later, I went back to that series, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. I love this. Yeah.
Well, and they're doing things. I mean, they abandoned it pretty early on in the new universe, but they were doing or attempting to do a real time, so that a month passed between issues. I mean, again, they had to abandon that pretty quickly because it just didn't work from a storytelling standpoint.
It was a good effort, though. Yeah.
It was.
But I mean, and DP7 was the longest running, of the new universe titles,
and of course the entire run of it. Yeah,
and you could tell what he loved, because again, he brought the new universe in the Quasar. His Squadron Supreme, he brought in the Quasar.
Yeah. This is what
Supreme. Yeah.
And this is what's great about Quasar. This was the sandbox in which he got to play with these things.
Yes.
He couldn't do that in Captain America. You're not bringing in the Quest Probe world into Captain America. But wouldn't I have loved that? But no, he's not gonna do that. And so he knew he had this space to play around with these things and incorporate the Star brand and do all this stuff. And he knew that there wasn't going to be a huge audience of people for it, but there was enough to sustain it for 60 issues. Not that it wasn't a fight. You read those letter pages and you know that it was a fight. But my gosh, the letters are so wonderfully passionate. When they're letters like asking fans, like, what can we do to increase sales? What are we going to do? And so many of them are like, if you're going to turn him into the Punisher, I don't care. I'm not going to read that. If he's some sort of space, vigilante, I'm not going to read this anymore. And so it was almost like a lot of us were like, this is what I want. And if it can't sustain itself through sales, I don't want it to continue. And it ended too short, and Mark would have loved for it to continue. We got 60 issues out of this. I think that's not unsubstantial. And I think all through it, there's so much merit. There's so many fascinating things. You talked about Journey into Mystery, and then moving into the Cosmos and Collision. And those are great. Those are as good a storylines as you'll find anywhere, really. But there's stuff after that that's fascinating and weird and fun. And as we already talked about, those first 12 issues are doing a lot of heavy lifting that maybe we don't even realize at first.
Well, and Gruenwald really, he gave the Marvel Universe kind of a lived-in feel, I feel like, because you might have Quasar walk in front of another character and it just not be a big deal. It made the universe seem like this cohesive thing. Which at least I feel like
his office was in the same skyscraper as the Fantastic Four's headquarters.
Although how Reed Richards didn't detect Eon or or those quantum bands,
Oh no.
He was busy that day. Don't
Yes.
worry
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
we
he really with the official handbook, with everything that he was doing, it was it wasn't a big deal to see another character show up in Quasar that wouldn't necessarily have to be a superhero slugfest or something. It was just like
Right.
it grounded
Yeah.
that book and the rest of the Marvel universe as a place maybe that you could visit, because it's here. This person's here, they're over there, and
And
all of those things.
That's also why during that Quasar series you had not one, but I think 5 different multi-part crossovers that involved lots of different disparate parts of the Marvel universe. You had the Operation Galactic Storm, you had Acts of Vengeance, you had all 3 Infinity crossovers, which heavily involved Quasar.
No, just 2.
And then a bunch of stuff after that. So but a lesser writer would have found that a very daunting task. But Mark, he made it look effortless to just all this stuff and these massive crossovers.
And he came
and
up with
and you bring up the Infinity Gauntlet stuff. Phil and I kind of have a running gag where I always say that Cosmos and Collision is the best Marvel cosmic. Forget Infinity Gauntlet, whatever. But Infinity War, actually, he took something that could have been just a simple crossover and forget it. But he let it affect the book for months because Quasar was nullified. And we brought in the White Room and all of this weird metaphysical stuff that was going on. I mean, it was a bold choice, I think.
And again, pulled it off good because again, Cosmos and Collision, he killed Quasar, and then they're asking him to kill Quasar off again. He's like, I just did this like a year ago.
Yeah.
It's in a different way.
Yes.
This time with more feeling.
And the nullified Quasar, that leads us to a weirdly organic Punisher appearance.
Oh yes, with Marvel Boy,
When which almost kind of made sense. That was something that he did so well in this, is when he did bring in like the bigger names like Ghost Rider, Punisher, sort of the trendy vigilante characters that were not Mark's cup of tea, like at all. He made it work. Of course, both those times those characters show up, Quasar's dead. So maybe that's why it worked.
Was that meta commentary? It's like, this is killing my babies. I mean, again, the Ghost Rider makes sense. It's like innocent blood's been spilled, just Quasar's here,
Oh, but that issue, that is brutal. Honestly, that issue is number 23. It's 23, I think. Yeah, because Ghost Rider's on the cover. Yeah. That's where he has this, or they call this crowning moment of awesome or something, where he basically can't count above 1. For
or was that this? Or was that? Was that issue or the pre? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's and a lot of people are like, well, that's pretty badass. But again, I come back because of your book and look at that and like, you bring up the suicidal ideation and everything, and I'm like, I see that scene and a lot of the behavior that led us up to that scene in a much different light now because of what you go through in the book. I mean, you make an excellent case for his mental health issues.
Yeah. Thank you. It was something that was so important to me when I was writing this, is I saw these things, especially as I was reading the issues again and again. And Death Urge was just such a fascinating character. And the way that he's used at those different points in which he appears. And I really wanted to make sure that I did that, because as you said, there's a brutality in those issues that is not something that you see in Gruenwald comics very often. I mean, he doesn't usually get to that level of sort of visceral brutality that often. So it's got to mean something, and it definitely does. And Quasar gives up. I mean, he 100% gives up. Tells Death Urge, "I'm done. Just do it." And he doesn't. And then we get those conversations with the, however we want to call it, the Eon created black room, whatever it is that Gilbert wants to call it, which gives him something. But at the same time, when we have the whipping and he just counts to 1, is that him giving up? Is that him being inspired? Is it a combination of both? It's complicated because Wendell is a complicated figure.
Yeah.
And just like the big place Marvell takes like in his life. Meanwhile, Marvell's been dead already for like 10 years or something.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because he can't live up to it. And probably the fact that Marvell's dead is part of it, although Captain America very much not dead, and he can't live up to that either. So in all these moments, as he's hanging there handless, it's like Captain America could have done this. It's like, I don't know, man. I mean, it's pretty bad. What's happened to you?
And I love how Mark.
and
I was gonna say I love how Mark ties in the continuity because meanwhile, as Quasar's trying to keep the universe from falling apart, Captain America is stuck on a cruise ship with Superior.
You're talking about that brutality, and 23 is brutal, but end of 22 where he has his hands chopped off.
Yeah,
that was. I mean, that is a in your face. What the heck is going on here, right? Moment, because it's again, Wendell comes back from it, of course, but it's like something has radically changed at this. What's going to happen next, right?
Yeah. One thing that's really interesting is when Minerva and Atlas capture him and try to get the bands off. She talks about doing that. She's going to do it. She's got the laser. She's going to scoop out the organic material, just like she did in middle school or whatever the line is there. And so it's like we're getting to that, but it's like there's no way this is going to happen, right? I mean, you in that issue, it's like, well, that's crazy. I mean, this is the thing supervillains say, and we're not going to actually see that. And then it's not, it's a year of issues later, whatever it is, and we literally see it. So like Mark was kind of setting us up for it by not doing it back then because we never believed that he would. And the most, I can't remember the time. Is it 15 minutes later or when Maelstrom starts to take off his hands? There's just that one little direction of the amount of time that passes, and that might be one of the most terrifying little time indicators you'll ever see in a comic.
Yeah, like it's not instantaneous. It took a little bit. Yeah,
it took a while.
And thank you for not depicting that on the page. But it's just enough to show us the brutality of what's going on. Yeah, that's a shocking page, and it's amazing to look back at it and think like, oh my gosh, this is real stakes. And our hero has no chance at all in this. That's why it's pretty cool when he does.
I mean, that story's a massacre. That story's a massacre because again, and then Eon's like, you got to kill me, so Maelstrom doesn't get the cosmic awareness.
Sure.
But then he gets it anyway. I mean, there's this, we see a second, a glimmer of hope, and then boom, it gets slapped down again, and it is.
And the poor presence gets stuck in the quantum zone for no reason at all.
For like 2 years.
And so that's the real tragedy, according to him. That was really bad.
Wait, I rename you Absence, not Presence.
Yes.
Thought that's a weird line, but okay, I'll go with it, right?
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned in the book is, or I think it's a quote from Gruenwald, where he describes himself as a structuralist.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting that you point back to that first issue where they're thinking about cutting off the bands, because I hadn't made that connection either.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that really does point to the way he built, and methodically built out, not only his, individual issues, but, the arcs and what he was doing, for the series.
And tying back to things by other writers from a decade plus earlier, when he first meets the Thing in the Marvel 2-in-1 at the beginning of Project Pegasus, the Thing wants to kill him because he thinks that he's Crusader. And what happens when he first meets the Human Torch? Human Torch thinks he's Crusader, and he's like, no, I'm not that guy. You are wearing pretty much a carbon copy costume, but let's not worry about that. And as I mentioned in there, I love it when they meet each other in the issue that comes out earlier, the Avengers issue. I think it's like 303. And the Human Torch sees Quasar and it's like, you again. And then there's the little editor's note. It's like, this will be explained in a couple of months. Who does this?
Yeah.
Well, you have to jump around to so many different issues to see why Johnny Storm doesn't really like Quasar that much. I mean, that's fascinating. And then obviously Spider-Man doesn't like him either.
I mean,
Yep.
yeah. So it's like not only was Mark like a talented writer, but it's like, you know, he knew how to sell books. It's like he's like, I'm going to entertain you along the way, but yeah, you know, go pick up this, go pick up that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, all the intertwining between the Quasar and the Avengers stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, so many of those early Avengers issues are like, hey, go check out Quasar. Here, you'll find out more about that in this issue.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that I kind of miss, right, as a reader. And I strive to do this as a creator too. I've actually had a couple of editors' notes in the books that I published via Kickstarter, but I love seeing editors' notes in a book because it's like, oh, hey, this expands that universe, right? You know, I'm reading this book. Oh, go if you want to know what really happened, go check out Marvel 2-in-1 number 63 or something like that.
Feel bigger.
That's right, kids. This episode brought to you by Will Allred's crossover division.
Oh. and but you know, you can't. The editors on Quasar couldn't do all of that. I mean, there'd be every panel would have an editor's note, and I love that in the entering the worlds of What If issue. They don't even try, really. I mean, there's just no point in trying to tie back to all of this stuff. Then you'd have to go to this issue of What If or this issue of the.
And it was like volume 1, volume 2. So yeah, it was.
Oh
yeah.
And I love that moment when he sees the Atlantis attack stuff, and there he is. He's like, "Oh, look, I'm involved in this one." Yeah, it's really bad, Wendell. But okay, at least I'm
not awesome.
At least I got to be part of it.
As he's wrestling set for eternity. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, it's not really.
I think he even
great.
comments. Yeah, he even comments on it. You know, are all of these universes that the Watcher sent me to like about to end or something? I sense a pattern here. You know.
Yeah, like that last one, it's like, where he failed in Cosmos and Collision, and it's just like Thanos and Maelstrom wrestling over a dead universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which got us
kicks
the new universe.
us into the new universe, which is amazing.
Yep.
I mean,
absolutely.
That's another swerve. You're like, wait, what? The new universe had been canceled, 3 or 4 years, I guess, at this point.
That's nothing to
I'm not certain of the timeline
something like
yet.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
And it's like so far off the beaten track, even the Watcher doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
And those programs won't work. I mean, again, he's doing everything to make this feel as far out of the mainstream timeline as possible because he can't use the bands. The Watcher doesn't know where he is. That just amps up everything and just makes it feel so much more outside of everything. And that's just such a cool thing.
And it brings up something I think that Gruenwald was, or at least I feel like he was really concerned with, was this hierarchy, right, of universes. And I know he published, what was it, Omniverse was a fanzine he published. And I may have an issue around here somewhere, but published like in the late 70s, early 80s, or somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then he constructs an Omniverse, and we get to see little call outs to like the Image universe. Like we get the hand of Spawn, we get Ren and Stimpy, we get recognizable bits and pieces of characters. Like what is this, the Horizon of Holes, I think is issue 50 maybe, or 49, I can't, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think so.
But I mean, it let him, he used it to build this, I think, tremendously interesting construct of what these fictional universes and how they relate to each other, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. And I agree with you completely. I think that was such a priority, but he also wanted to get us into like the inner workings and the minutiae of these things too. And so it was like these big concepts that would also have this sort of intimacy with the way that they would be dealt with. I think about the issue where he's in the new universe and he needs to get the Star Brand. It's the only way he's going to get out of here. So he goes and talks to the guy about the Star Brand and it's like, I'll just sit here. I'm going to talk to you until you're convinced. And it gives us another one of those time things, like 12 hours later.
Right.
Yeah.
So Quasar and this guy have just sat there for hours and hours and just talked. And this is like the most intimate human thing that we could have, but it's about this sort of fantastical thing. And I love how he balances that. And I love how he gives us the like both in Captain America and occasionally in Quasar, we get these kind of small things of just process. And I think in the last issue last episode we talked about that Quasar backup story in the Avengers annual,
Yeah.
where he fills out paperwork and he has to do training exercises and stuff. And most writers are not going to spend any time with this. But most writers are now Mark Gruenwald, and he's fascinated by that. And in Captain America, I always think of the panel where Sidewinder's sitting on his bed filling out spreadsheets and stuff. And it's like, okay, this is a weird thing to show us of a supervillain. It's a weird thing to show us of a hero going through the processes of what it would be to be an Avenger. But I think that was how this stuff would work in the real world was fascinating to Mark.
Well, I mean, I think one, it humanizes the characters because they're doing something that all of us have to do, right? No matter what. But second, it makes you think that and I'm gonna air quote this, realistic, right? But it gives you something that, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense because we have to do that in the real world too. So it adds to that lived-in feeling of the Marvel universe, I think. Which
I think you're 100% right, and I think he does that in all of his titles that he wrote. That he would have these lived-in moments. You have moments where Captain America goes to like a Farm Aid type concert and sees Tina Turner off in the corner. It's like, hey, I think that's Tina Turner. This is a really weird thing to do, but it's very human, and it makes his character so much more relatable. And that's the point of Wendell Vaughn. He is a human protector of the universe, as you said earlier. This is what he is. And so for him to have these issues with his mental health and suicidal ideation, having these conflicts about the way he views religion and atheism and all this is a human guy. Marvel is able to be depicted as being this perfect creature because he's dead and he's alien. And Wendell has to deal with that. Like, how can I, a flawed human person, compete with these other cosmic heroes? And that's the struggle for so much of it. And even when it feels like it's over in like issue 25, it's not. Then he immediately comes up against a new threat and feels like, well, I can't do this either. Like, I died and came back and everything to beat Maelstrom, and then here comes the next one, and then lose again, like instantly. So he's constantly having those challenges, and again, that makes him human. That makes us care.
Yeah, that's like the one big.
Actually, I have a.
Oh, sorry, Will. I was gonna say the one big. So we
Go
talked
ahead.
about this. The one big story running into the other at the end of Cosmos, a collision when, like, basically Maelstrom just appears to Thanos and be like, I'm the new big guy, so you're gonna bow to me. I ain't bowing to you. It's just.
But by that point, Quasar's earned his way. He went through these characters in those first 12 issues to earn the right to get to do these things. He doesn't think so, and he doesn't always do that well in these encounters. But that's such an interesting progression for him as far as his big bads.
Well, you don't really get it into the book, so I'm very curious about your opinion on the Silver Surfer confrontation that happens in issue 50, where he purposely throws the fight to win for such a Gruenwaldian thing to do, I guess, to
Oh, I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. Well, you coined it, I think, the last time we spoke, and so it makes sense to keep going with it. The Silver Surfer interaction was important. When we talked earlier about what fans were suggesting to increase sales, that was the one thing that came up. It's like, well, you got to bring the Surfer in. You got to bring the Surfer in. He didn't do it until there was a logical time to do it, and that was certainly it. And it is such an interesting thing for him to do, where Quasar has to plot out who's picked who in this conflict, where each of the big cosmic entities here, Erishkigal and who is it, Living Tribunal in that one?
I think
Tribunal.
That he's got to figure out who's picked who. So he's having like a literal fight and then the mental fight, and that feels very Gruenwald. And then he realizes, oh, I think I'm the one that will mess everything up if I win. And so I really love that issue. It didn't even dawn on me that I haven't written it. There's so much stuff to write about in this book. It's so hard to keep up with all of it. But I really love that because it just shows what he's having to do. And when we get to that point, kind of like 25 to 30 on, the conclusions are less about I'm not competent, I can't do this, and more like, that was a weird thing that I had to do. Like, I'm the protector of the universe, and I had to basically kill all these these souls to help them move on. But it's not bad. It's like, this is what I had to do. It's like, well, this was a pretty terrible loss, and I look awful at the end of issue 50, but I won.
Or I'm the protector of the universe, and I almost gave birth. Yeah.
I mean, almost is a big word there.
Yeah. But
the cover would indicate that he almost gave birth.
And there was so much stuff in this series I wanted to see more of. Like, another one of my favorite characters from that era appeared, and I wish that we would have got more of Wendell with him, Thunderstrike.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I think they're both they're both kind of similar in a way, where they were normal people and just had like cosmic power thrust on that, like circumstances just threw them into this.
Yes. And I think one of my favorite interactions is not a Gruenwald issue, but it's toward the end of Operation Galactic Storm, when they're splitting off into groups about who's going to go off and kill the Supreme Intelligence and who isn't, and Cap is not going to do that, and Quasar's like, yeah, I'm going to be on this side, I'm going to be on the humane side with Cap. And Thunderstrike, Eric Masterson, I believe is his name, and I say that because I got it wrong the last time we talked, but Eric tells him, like, yeah, that's what you do. You're just going to do what Cap says. And, that's your problem, Quasar. And Wendell doesn't even say anything in response. And it's not that long after that he quits the Avengers. And we know that he's quitting the Avengers because he can do more as a protector of the universe after that. But I think that probably stung him. And I think Mark would know that. And so it's interesting because they're kind of in the same boat as far as their, not quite the level of experience, but their level on the prominent stage as Avengers at that time. And Eric is somebody who is willing to speak truths that Wendell probably has to acknowledge a little bit, but isn't going to feel great about. Because he is a little bit of a Cap fanboy, and maybe not even a little bit. He had posters of him on his wall.
Issue 1, yeah. They
not Thor.
Set that up right away. No.
but Captain America. And throughout, he always references Captain America as being like the model of things. Often it's Marvel, but usually it's, well, what would Captain America have done? Cap would have done this. And, he basically seems to leave the Absorbing Man for dead, but Cap says, he's fine. Don't worry about it.
He blew up. He'll be fine.
Yeah, that's good enough for Quasar. And I just find that fascinating, how much his words mean. And in the last issue, when he goes and tells him that he's going to be leaving, it means everything to Quasar. Just to hear that affirmation from Cap that he's good, that he did well.
I thought you were going to say
and that actually plays into. I'm sorry, go ahead, Phil.
No, I was going to say, I thought you were going to say your favorite interaction between Quasar and Thunderstrike was that Thor issue where Hercules is trying to train Eric Masterson.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then they get in trouble for it, which is also great.
Yeah, like they're called to the principal's office. Yeah.
It's kind of like Cap's like, I told you guys, do not let Hercules tell you what to do. He's a bad influence.
But a couple of things. One, I find it very interesting, and you actually bring this up in the book too, that when Wendell is going back to get the bands, after being resurrected because of the Star Brand and all that stuff, he goes to Eric Masterson and Thunderstrike, to help him go with him, which, based on that interaction in Galactic Storm, that's an interesting choice, right?
It is. And Eric is still like a little gruff at times. I mean, Eric doesn't become just like this sort of pushover at any point during that with him. So sorry, I interrupted you. We're also excited to talk about this.
Yeah, I know.
and so I love that observation. And then what also happens is they have to fight each other when they're under control of the possessor at different points. So maybe that's a way of working out some of those aggressions, even if it's not them.
So the other thing you brought up was, Cap's affirmation, and you talk about this throughout the book. Wendell's quest for mentors, is a big part of his story throughout all 60 issues, right? Until Starblast, which I think you bring up some really interesting points about Starblast too, which I'm gonna admit this. It's gonna be on tape. I actually have a slightly better appreciation for Starblast now after reading Jason's book. So
nice.
That was kind of my goal. I will admit that. And Starblast is a mess. I mean, it just is. There's just no way around it. And I pointed out in the book, you got things misnumbered. I mean, it's a mess. And yet, I think the heart of that, especially at least the Star Blast and Quasar issues, the heart of this is really kind of interesting about what it's trying to do. And there's some really cool moments in there. It was also an absolute swing for the fences. I mean, he is trying so hard to get some recognition for this title, some awareness of this title, and it doesn't work. And so it's so fascinating to see that all together. I think as an effort, it's maybe more interesting than the actual artifact that it is. The process that put all this together and what he's trying for. But I'm glad I swayed you a little bit. I've talked to somebody else who read this who's like, yeah, maybe I'll have to go back to it. I'm like, well, you're gonna have to look for it. You got to get those issues in print because Marvel Unlimited's not willing to put it up there yet.
Marvel, that is one.
I was shocked. I was shocked when we got trade paperbacks of Quasar. We have the first 12, and then we've got Cosmos and Collision. I mean, that I did not expect that, and I would love to have an omnibus or a hard.
Absolutely.
60 issues, a couple Star Blasts,
or one of those epic collections.
Yeah, I would love to have a hardcover of Cosmos and Collision at the bare minimum, right?
Yeah,
just because.
Yeah, he doesn't have any books on his wall.
Yeah, I don't like books at all.
Sure. I'm with you. Yeah.
Can we go back to talking about that search for a mentor, because you bring up a really lot of great points. First it's and you take it back to his father and his relationship with his father, and you even do some analysis of that relationship and of Gilbert as well, and perhaps his mental state, which I think is really interesting because I hadn't really considered that either. But then it's without that we see a progression of mentors, which I think is really interesting.
And I don't know if this was deliberate on Mark's part or not, but it's going all the way back to the Marvel 2-in-1 stuff with Project Pegasus, because when he's talking to Ben Grimm, it's Mr. Grimm, sir. He is acquiescing to people who have more experience than him early. I that's such an important part. Not when he is losing to Death Urge in issue 2. That's just a literal thing. He's completely overmatched and he's mentally not there to really compete. But then he meets Eon and he trusts Eon right from the beginning. And I think a lot of it is because Eon believes in him. And Eon obviously gives him additional powers at that point. But he's able to overpower Death Urge because somebody has confidence in him. Somebody believes in him. And he has not felt that because his father doesn't, at least to Wendell's mind. His father doesn't. That might not be entirely true if you kind of look through. If we see Gilbert as somebody who's on the spectrum, if Gilbert is somebody who just is not able to emote in the way that Wendell expects and wants from another human, especially his father, there are plenty of moments where Gilbert seems genuine in his concern and his love for Wendell, but Wendell just never can see it, and he needs it. And I bring up that moment. I think it's when he goes to the garage at the end of 3, and he's like, "You won't believe what I did. This is exciting." And Gilbert's like,
not now. I'm talking to Eon.
Yeah, and I mentioned in the book that it's kind of hard to read Wendell at that moment, because he's like, there's a little whimsy in his reaction. Like, I guess I can't compete with that, and maybe it's just also acceptance. And it's like, and those are two peas in a pod. Eon and Gilbert. I mean, these are two people. One's not a person, but one's more of a tree type thing. But they're two beings that kind of see the world in these really analytical ways. And Wendell's not that. And I think that's one of the things that I love most about Wendell is he's not this scientist at all. He's a smart guy who's able to analyze things and use science to defeat his enemies with the bands. But he's also somebody who just feels a lot, and it's got to be difficult for him, and in the same way it would be difficult for his mother to deal with Gilbert, because he is not somebody who's equipped to deal with that. So if that's your first mentor, you might find yourself trying to find others, but he never can really find himself like worthy of these aliens and people that he sees as mentors. He gets acceptance from Cap, and he gets it pretty quickly. I mean, Cap is very quick to admire Quasar, but he always feels like he has to earn that. And I don't know if Steve Rogers would feel that he does, but he constantly feels that he needs to. And then we already talked about the Marvell relationship, which isn't even a relationship. They went to a party once. So at some point they went to like the Fantastic Four Christmas party or something. And there must have been
Defenders for a Day. Defenders for a Day. They rode horses.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Well, I know he went to an FF
Yeah,
Christmas party, but I guess Marvell wasn't at that one. But yeah, so that and again, Mark knows that, so we have to get that reference in, so we can at least get that. I love that. Jumping off again, this is the way my brain works. But that's something that Moondragon tells me at one point. It's like, I saw you. We were in an event together, and I was really attracted to you. And then it's like you go back to it. It's like, oh, okay. It's like that, that issue of Captain America or whatever it was, where they were in the same space together for a minute. I think that was like Cap 401. I think you see both of them.
Yeah.
And evidently, Moondragon was thinking a lot of things in that one panel on 401 that she was in.
Well, one, I love the flashback too, because Mark, because of the continuity of the costume, puts him in that other costume, and then two, I'm just like the reveal of Moondragon, well, the mystery of Moondragon, because she's quite the opposite. I mean, she's all covered up instead of wearing that costume. Sure. She has hair, so
yeah. And I have fun getting to talk about the HD Steckley persona there. I will admit that was a time. There were a few times where I came downstairs while I was working on this with comics in my hand, asking my wife, like, "Hey, Chapel, look at this panel. Help me talk about this panel." and that was one of them. I'm like, I need you to look at this woman on this panel and tell me how best to describe her. And so when I have to give her credit on that one, because as I'm describing her look in that, she's like, okay, well, I think that's a weird thing. She's got a tie on. That's strange. But yeah, so it was fun to get into that. I got to collaborate a little bit, and also when we get to the Heather later, or not Heather, I'm sorry, the Arishka Gull's persona.
HD,
yeah. When we get her again later, it's and then Quasar literally pulls the hair, and the trio. Like, who would want to work at this office?
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember bringing that up in the book too, where HD is the weirdo when she shows up, because she is dedicated to work and wants to get a lot of contact. So it's like strange. And then when Holly shows up and we pull her hair and we grab her, like, okay. There's no HR department at Vaughn Security Solutions.
Well, you actually bring it up. You're like, the Vaughn Security Systems succeeds almost in spite of Wendell, because he's never there. I mean, it's
well, once he steps out of the way, because he's like, Ken, you're in charge. Yeah,
because he's smart enough to put Ken in charge, and then they take full advantage of the contracts that they kind of maybe a little shady.
Ethically,
not questioning. Oh yeah, Moondragon. Yeah, brainwash these people.
Yeah, and maybe that was a little underhanded. But hey, they didn't literally do it. But Ken proves to be much more competent at this job. Yeah. So yeah, the company does fine once he leaves, which is a strange thing. But he's human, right? He's got a lot of other things to worry about, and he never proves to be that great at that job. I mean, like ever. Well, he never does it.
I thought of that over the years. Is Vaughn Security System still going?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't hear about it. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it pops up in a few other comics here and there. You get some references to it. That's another video that I want to do at some point. Is talking about references to it.
So I think you mentioned it in the book too. You have the typical. The hero reveals his secret identity scene, right? Which is supposed to be this dramatic reveal.
Sure.
And Mark does it completely differently.
Completely different. Mm-hmm. And it's like, fine, here I am, whatever. Life sucks. Yeah. Might as well tell you.
Oh, what, the Kayla? Oh, yeah, this might be the big bad. This might be the cosmic madness. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm Quasar. See ya.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we've had this conversation before, Will. Like, Kayla, like at the end of Star Blast, I'm glad he doesn't go off with Kayla, because it's like she's really not the love of his life, and because it's like through the series, how much time total do you think they've spent together through the whole series, with like one real date maybe?
I agree with you. I also look at it from Kayla's perspective. I mean, this guy's not really that great for her.
No.
This is somebody who has dealt with countless abusive relationships, it seems. You know, a terrible relationship with her father. When we first meet her, she's talking about men that she's been with in this very kind of like non-committed way to anything. And this is not somebody who has had great models for relationships anywhere. And Wendell, at best, is distant. So I'm kind of happy for her too at that point.
Yeah.
And it feels like a lot of what Wendell's feeling for her is the idea of her rather than the actuality of her.
The actual her, yeah.
And so, you know, when he's just kind of pining, staring at this world he can't enter, the fact that he's so willing to walk away without having to give up his bands kind of shows us where this is. That he kind of realizes, like, okay, maybe this isn't it. And he's hurt. And again, Gruenwald, nothing happens in a Gruenwald issue that is of any significance that is forgotten. You know, so that's the entire ending of Quasar, is dealing with the ramifications of him losing Kayla, even though he has the chance to be with her and doesn't take it. And I think that's fascinating, with the exception of the Star Fox issue that doesn't mean anything. You know, everything is about getting us to that point in 60, which is one of the most hopeless final issues you'll ever see in a comic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no hope for Wendell in that issue. And it's just so bleak that you can't help but think about Mark's state of mind regarding the comic industry at that point. Because we talked about the Captain America finale for him before, and that one is pretty bleak also, but there's hope, and there just isn't in Quasar. And I go back to those final lines from Wendell as he's leaving Earth over and over again. I mean, there's things that I still think about, just how sad it is, and not just sad for the character, but just sad for the creator. And I think those of us who love Mark's work, we're really, really attached to him as a creator, in addition to the works that he creates. And it's impossible to read the ending of that or the final year of Captain America and not feel this sadness for what's being lost for him. And it's just such an emotional issue that doesn't give us any possibility of things being good. I mean, the best thing about it is that he's alive, but that hardly seems like a win when he has to leave everything and everybody just to get away.
Oh, okay. Hey, Will, we got feedback. You'll never guess from who. Soshin. Quasar and her could have been number one power cosmic couple.
That would have been Kismet. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you.
But it wasn't too long. The last 3 issues of Guardians of the Galaxy, the first run of Guardians of the Galaxy, they reveal that the Guardians alternate timeline, Quasar, and I don't think she had renamed herself Kismet at that point yet. They had gotten together, and they were the parents of Starhawk,
right?
Which I thought was, I think Greg, who wrote those issues? I don't think, maybe was it Gregory Wright? I don't know if it was Gregory Wright or not. But
might have been.
I thought that was, you know, Quasar hadn't been gone too long, because this would have been mid 90s, I think. For another creator to kind of bring him in, I thought, oh, that's kind of cool, you know, at that point.
It is. And you know, thinking of her, capital H-E-R, he's willing to travel with her by the end. You know, when we get that final issue with her, he asks her to, or I guess it's the final issue overall, right? He asks her to join him, and she says no. And we don't get the direct implication that it's a romantic pairing. But I don't think Quasar can possibly disregard that. And she reaches a point where he's somebody who he could see in that way, which he just doesn't before. But she grows as a character. And so it's fascinating to see that possibility in that last issue of, you know, maybe this is something that can happen. But nothing works out for Wendell in that issue. So there's no way she could go. That would be like a positive thing for him, and we can't have that. But I do think that it's absolutely a thing that could happen in that.
That was Michael Gallagher on those.
Michael Gallagher on those Guardians issues.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was like 61 through 63.
59, right? I think through 61. Yeah.
59 through 61. Okay. Yeah. It's as a Gruenwald fan and as a Quasar fan, it's often challenging to try to read Wendell after the series, right? After Gruenwald can no longer write him with under other creators. I mean, have you surely you've experienced that too?
I've tried. For this book, I didn't really want to delve into too much after Star Masters, but I have read some of that stuff, and it just feels not quite right, and that's not fair to those creators. But that's just where I am with it. I mean, this character is so tightly wound to this very specific Gruenwald vision. I even have trouble with some of the Avengers issues that he's not writing with Quasar because he doesn't feel quite right. I read some of the John Byrne stuff. It's like I don't think he gets it quite what Mark was doing with the character. And I'm not usually one to tell John Byrne how to write a comic story, but even the Quasar solo adventure in the Avengers, it's like it just doesn't quite feel like him. He's not self-doubting enough. Come on.
Or even like in the crossing line, he's like, "Here, I'm going to make a glowing net to throw over the Atlanteans." It's like, okay.
Oh yeah.
Instead of just like trying to bubble everyone up, he's like, "Oh, make a net." Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So one thing that you kind of got me thinking about as I was reading the book is that when he chooses the bands, he's choosing them for life because they cannot be removed until he dies. That's a commitment that he makes, and I think he gradually comes to understand that is. I mean, and in the final issue, he does not go away with Kayla. He keeps the bands, and he keeps that commitment to do what he wants to do. Because another point you make is that he's a really, really compassionate character. He cares, and I just think that's there's lots of great stuff. Go buy this book, people. It's lots of great stuff in it.
Yes.
Thank you. I had such a blast writing this book. It just so delightful to go through, and you point out some things that I didn't get into the Silver Surfer thing, and it's like, wow, I don't talk nearly as much about Maelstrom as I probably should, and so it's a reminder of how rich all of this is, in terms of just what Mark created with this comic, and just how much he loved this comic and this character. And you get it. You just feel it, especially, as it continues. He puts him through so much, and you can almost just feel how hard it is for him as a writer to put this character through so much.
Oh yeah, that last issue when he's like talking in the letters pages about the series isn't going on and stuff, and I mean I was bummed, and you could just feel you could tell Gruenwald was crushed.
Yeah, and I pointed out in the books, I obviously analyzed that note a lot. That just this little snide comments about other comics that maybe aren't great, and he doesn't outright say these things, but you could just feel this bit of bitterness about the fact that this comic didn't get to go on. And there were plenty of comics at that time that he knew. Come on, there were things that this is better than, but maybe that one's just hitting a few more sales marks. And is getting to do it, and it just clearly broke his heart. And then he gets to write the character again, and that's a depressing opening note in the Star Master stuff, about just how hard it was to get that because of the stink that they got
Star Blast.
And just how Quasar had a stink on him, I had a stink on me, but he still wants to write this character. I mean, it just seems like a sane human being, and I don't know if Mark was when it came to Quasar, would like, okay, maybe I'm done with this. Maybe I have to be, but it's like, I'm going to try it again. And he just keeps going back. And Star Masters is very much a Quasar series with a couple of other people in it. But there are a few moments in there, and I point them out too, when we get the team together and Quasar has this chain bubble, where he thinks like, I wonder if this is how the Avengers felt, and it's like, oh my gosh, come on, Mark. Don't do this to me.
I mean, you point out, was there just too many characters in Star Blast? I mean, I know what he was trying to go for is, if Quasar's getting canceled, he wanted to try to bring him back in a team book.
Sure.
did he go over the top with like, oh, look at all these powerful characters that Quasar is basically leading in the battle?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mess. We can acknowledge that. I can still like it on a lot of levels and acknowledge that it is, a mess in a lot of ways. You get Skeletron and barely do anything with him, and I think there's potential there. I mean, it's a pretty derivative look, as I also point out, but I think there's a lot of interesting things that could be done with that. But when we get to the end of that storyline, it's so rushed. I don't know if I've ever read a storyline that feels more rushed to get to the finish line than that one.
Wrap it up in a few panels, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything wraps up. Like, wait a minute, what just happened? We've just switched around the different planets, and we've sent this guy off here, and okay, so the stranger wins. All of this stuff is happening just so quickly. And it's kind of hard to take it all in because it's moving in a little bit more of a methodical pace to start, and then just rushes to the finish line to the point where it almost has no resonance and pathos at the end.
I think we speculated it's like maybe like halfway through Star Blast. Do you think maybe the word came down where like, okay, officially it's ending at 60, so you only have this many more issues to go?
It might be. Yeah, it might be, and then we get those epilogue issues that follow that to try to wrap up these things, at least on like that human character level. And then he also has to rush in to wrap up Makari's storyline and Kismet's storyline, because that was it. He's the continuity guy. So we have to make sure that these characters are not just lingering out there. Although, Makari ends up in kind of a worse place, but also hopeful because he's got a friend now. That we don't really use that much. But there's a friend that he's got. Because we might get in trouble if we do too much with that friend, whoever he is. And so it's hopeful for both Kismet and Makari, but it's not for Quasar. Quasar doesn't get that happy ending in the story. And I think both of those characters, Kismet and Makari, kind of do. I mean, Makari's is pretty bleak. He now only can talk to like 4 beings in the universe
who can move that fast.
Yeah. And yet there's a hopefulness because he's learned his lesson that maybe there are other things that are more important, and that is hopeful. But Wendell doesn't get that.
And then again, that's the writer Gruenwald Mark was too, because it's like after I think issue 36, Makari and Quasar don't interact anymore. They don't see each other after 36. There's so many writers could have just dropped that plot, but Mark had him pretty much till the end.
Yep.
And we got actual arcs. You mentioned for Makari, the need for speed, but he got an arc, and he ended his character arc. Mark ended his character arc. And he did the same thing. You go through and talk about, Kismet's arc, starting out, and then where she ended up, and how that choice really resonates with, how she was first introduced. I mean, it
Absolutely.
was, but you're right. There's that final issue is bleak for Wendell. Very bleak.
Yeah, it really is. And we get Kismet when we first meet her. She's a childlike version of Moondragon in a lot of ways. And she grows so much over the course of it. And it's great that her growth at the end is her own art. She's taking the initiative. She's manifesting this herself. When she's seeing the attack on Scatum, she's like, I cannot stand by this. I can't do it. And so, we can say that she's kind of learned from Wendell, and I think that's fair, but she becomes her own character, and she's never before that. And I think that's fascinating. I mean, I guess we can argue Moondragon is very much her own character throughout this, but she's not. Her sees herself as, I just need to be without a Morlock. I have to do that, and he slams the door on her, and she has no idea what to do. And so that's where the mating thing is like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, and it's not until she's able to go off on her own to find herself. And I think that's fascinating. I think it's a great art, and I think she's one of the most fascinating characters overall in the series, and certainly an example of what Mark was doing with female characters, what he had the potential to do.
Oh, we did it.
And,
we sold a book. We sold a book. We did it.
Nice.
All right. You bring up Scatum when she, she lashes out at the mourners, and really kind of calls them on their BS. These people aren't dead yet. You only want people to die, and lays out and says, I've and joins the attack, so that she can kind of try to help save the planet. So I thought that was a really big moment for her.
And she can't, which I think is fascinating too. It's like this is beyond her, but she's going to do this as long as she literally can before she stops. And I think it's really interesting the way the Mourners are fascinating just all the way through this. But his Quasar's reaction to them is like, okay, this is kind of interesting. I'm not against this. And even like opening himself up to the possibility of looking at religion in a different way than he had before. And then she's like, this is crap. I don't like these people. I'm uncomfortable with these creatures. And then eventually just leaves. And we don't even, Makari gets away eventually, and goes to the Grusenbecks. Is that what they're called? He eventually gets there. But yeah, she just takes off and just leaves him with the Mourners for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We'll probably end it here soon. Justin, do you have any more questions?
No, I've just enjoyed talking about all the Mark Gruenwald stuff. It's been a real treat for me being a lifelong fan. I vividly remember like reading about when he passed and just crying, like I couldn't even control it. Like it just struck me. So, and the only other creator like I can remember at that age that I had that reaction to hearing about was Bill Mantlo. Just Mark Gruenwald's his so much to me. Just collecting his run on Captain America for almost 10 years and reading Quasar and DP7, like I mentioned, and Squadron Supreme and all this other stuff. Just having such an immense love and appreciation for his work. It definitely shaped my formative teenage years in a positive way. And I'll always be grateful to him for that. And I'll always have a endearing love and respect for all of the work that he did. He was really kind of the beating heart and soul of Marvel, in my opinion.
Yeah.
See, I kind of had it opposite. Like recently, we lost Peter David. I was like, oh man, this is how I felt when Mark Gruenwald passed.
Yeah. But with Mark Gruenwald, it was more of a surprise. Like it just out of the blue. Like there was I hadn't heard that he was ill. Like I didn't know that he had any. Yeah,
wasn't it like a heart condition he didn't even know about or something? So.
It was. He had pretty clogged arteries, and I don't think there was any. In conversations with David, he kind of talked about just how we don't want to get into the Wisconsin stereotypes here, but he drank a lot of dairy. He was vegetarian, Mark was, and I think there was a wide consumption of dairy that may have led to some carotid arteries that eventually led to the very shocking as said, heart attack. Yeah. He was young. He was in good health. I mean, he was fit. He was thin. He ran a lot. Vegetarian. He was in remarkably good health, and I think everyone saw it as a shock. And I certainly was in the same boat. As I look back, I don't know if there's any. And I'm an English professor. I'm not bragging here, but I've read a lot of books, and I don't know if there's any single writer that I've read more of in some ways than Mark Gruenwald. We talk about just a sheer word count in a given issue, which is very true. But I've read, I think, everything he's written in comic form, and I don't know if there are many people that I've read more of. And I've read a lot of other comic writers, but I don't think anyone put themselves on the page in that same way that he did. I mean, it feels like you knew him, and that's hard to do when you're writing fiction of any type, but especially this type of fiction. When you also have the collaborative efforts of the artists and everything else, but there's just something about a Gruenwald issue that makes you know that it's him, and I don't know of any other writers that feel that way to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you knew he was pouring his heart and soul into it. It wasn't just a job to him.
And we know that in no small part because of those very sad issues that we talked about and those sad remarks that he gives. And even when things were better, a lot of those remarks, comments, you can sort of see a melancholy for some of the reactions to some of the work that he was doing. I mean, this is a guy that loved Marvel as much as anybody loves anything, and he gave everything. And we're lucky to be able to read this work and talk about this work and share it with people who love it as much as we do, and hopefully share it with other people that we can convince to read this stuff. because Phil, you said earlier, it's when you weren't there at the time, it's kind of hard to understand it. But I think there's a lot in Quasar that feels relevant today. That can work today. They're just timelessly good stories that are just so wonderfully weird that they just work on a whole bunch of levels. And there's so much weird stuff we didn't get to. We didn't get into Origin or even that much about the buried alien because there's just so much stuff to talk about here.
Anthropomorpho. I mean,
the mention of manifestation. Yeah.
I mean, this is why it was so hard to write this, and I convincing my publisher that I wanted to do this was not the easiest thing I've ever done. They thought this was a very obscure topic. I don't know what they're talking about. And in fact, I wanted to make sure I talked about this. When you reached out to me, Phil, I'm like, I found some episodes. I listened to some stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to be here. But then when I got here, I realized like, oh, I've listened to you before. And I remember listening to some of the stuff when you were talking about Quasar a while back. And so I love that we can find each other as Gruenwald fans and this small clique of Quasar aficionados that we're out there. And so it's so cool to hear people wanting to reach out and get the book because I want people to read the book because I wrote it, whatever. But it feels like this was Mark's love letter in a lot of ways to comics. And so I feel like I wanted to make sure that I put a lot of myself into this too. And so I'm so glad that it's out there. I'm as proud of this as I am anything I've written.
You should be. Yeah, it's really good. And, and just the connections you're saying between all of us. That's like when Will and I, when we first started doing Quantum Zone, what was that, like 2018, I think?
Yeah, it's a while ago.
Yeah. And then like he mentioned, he's like back in the day he created a Quasar website. Was it quantumzone.org?
Quantumzone.org. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Still
I was like, this is 2018. I'm like, I ran across that. I used to go to that like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it's like 18 years later, I meet the guy who created this website. I like.
My favorite places on the internet, and there are a lot of places I don't care for on the internet, but I think the places where I've found the home the most are the places where we're talking about comics. There's a Captain America fan group that I'm part of, and I've been able to be on a podcast and be part of their Facebook group, the Captain America Fans Podcast, to plug Rick and Bob. And I have met a few people from that world that I now know in real life. And our shared love is Captain American comics. And it's just beautiful to be able to do that. In fact, later this week, I'm going to be presenting on a panel where I get to talk about Mark's work on Captain America at a convention. And so it's fun to find this world, to find each other. And yeah, we're gonna find each other even as we're just looking around the internet, because there aren't that many people who talk about Quasar. Hopefully we can work on building that up as we go on. And you've done great work on that.
I was pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised because when I decided I want to do a Quasar the show on the podcast, I threw it out, I think maybe on Twitter before it went to hell. I was just like, watch, no one will respond to me. I got 2 responses, and of course, one of them was Will. I was like, "Oh wow, okay, so I'm not the only one." Okay,
and just look at Will; he's legit, man. Look at all those.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, we got the symbols. Wait, I don't have my daughter-in-law made me did the symbol on a glass for me. She etched on a glass. I'm like, that's cool.
Where's the tattoo? Well, okay.
It's right here over my heart.
I want to keep my shirt on. No.
I mean, he'd be the perfect nerd if he didn't have too much a big obsession with Hal Jordan.
Yeah. Do you like Green Lantern?
No, look behind his head. No, did you like Green Lantern? No.
Hey, if there were Quasar hardcovers and stuff, they would be front and center.
Okay? Hopefully one day.
I think we can argue that Quasar and the Green Lantern have a couple things in common.
Little bit, yes.
I think we might be able to do that if we really wanted to.
Yeah. But I think you're talking about that community. I think Gruenwald really encouraged that kind of community aspect of comics. Yeah. And one thing that is I think proven really important to me that he did was he demystified a lot of how comics are created. He would like, I put in this plot, and here's the plot, and then they approved it, and then I wrote a script, based on this method, and then we gave it to the, step by step, the process stuff, which I guess I'm a process nerd, but that I really feel like Gruenwald is one of the reasons why I make comics today, just because of reading his great work and wanting to try to do something myself. So I think he still kind of lives on in all of us.
I think so. And I love that, and I love the efforts that Kat has put forth, that you've all put forth, and I've put forth to continue to spread his memory and his good work, and it really is good. And so it feels like, when you watch the Loki series and you see Owen with the Owen Wilson with the mustache. It's like it feels like really warm and wholesome in a way that I don't think it would if he was designed after a different comic writer. I mean, nothing against other comic writers, but like Mark's our guy. And I think that's what he always saw that in his fans, that his fans really saw a connection with him that I don't think he got everywhere. There was that underdog spirit to Mark and Quasar especially, that I think a lot of us were drawn to. And that's why if you ask the fans back then, what can we do to make this better? They're going to tell you what not to do. Like, don't make him the Punisher in space. Don't do that. That's not what we're looking for. And they can make jokes, and the editors could on those letter pages, like, well, how many letters do we get a month? Let's just say that we get about 1,000 times less than what the X-Men do. So let's just get that out of the way first. And I think that's a draw, and that's why I wanted to do this. I didn't, it was fun to write the Captain America one. I love his work on Captain. I love doing that. But this feels like there's just such a wonderful underdog spirit to everything about Quasar, and the fact that it struggled. It's not fun. It wasn't fun for Mark that it struggled, but it seems to exemplify what this character was. This was a character that nobody cared about, and Mark made us care.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Jason. I'm sure we'll reach out at some point. We'll be like, you want to talk some comics? Let's talk some comics.
Let's do it whenever you need to.
Yeah.
I mean, we can space it out. Not maybe 4 days.
Oh,
real quick, but make it 8 minutes.
No.
No, I would love to come back. And there's no doubt in my mind. This has been a great time, and I love getting to talk to you guys about this.
But yes, thank you again, guys. Go pick up Mark Gruenwald's Quasar. His book, you can get it on Amazon, get it at McFarlane, the publisher, and also get his Captain America book, which been out for a while. Yep. This is the new one. He also has the Captain America book. So
yeah, this one's been out for a couple weeks now. So it's been fun to get to talk about it and get to talk to people who've read it. That's great. You write something like this and you're like, I'm loving doing this, but is anybody actually going to read this? And so it's been fun to get to talk to some people who have, and it's not just the two of you. There's 2 more guys that have. I'm kidding. Yeah. But it's been great to have these conversations. And it's something that means so much to us.
Yeah, all I had to see is that top part in blue. It was like Mark Gruenwald's Quasar. I'm like, I'm in.
Sold.
Yep.
I mean, again, you're a great writer, Jason. But again, it's like you mentioned, oh hey, it's Gruenwald. It's like, okay, nope, I'm going to check this out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, everyone. So yes, go pick up the book. Go to Kickstarter, pick up Will Allred's crossover division. Which Will, did you say we have a campaign coming up next? Is that next week already?
Yeah, we're launching on Kickstarter on the 3rd. So I'll be blasting out everything on the social media and everything like that when we launch on Tuesday.
Wonderful.
I'll try it. All right.
Yeah, it's
cool.
It's fun.
Not all of us can do all the comic book stuff, but at least I can write about people who have those talents that I don't have.
So yes, you want to pick up crossover division. It's very Gruenwaldian.
I'm in. That's all I needed to hear.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. Again, thank you, Jason. This has been a pleasure.
So
thank you.